All right, we're recording. We're ready to get started for this version of the community, of the KUDO community meeting. It's actually KUDO and Cuddle and the whole ecosystem. We are recorded. Everything that we say here, a couple of things. One is it's recorded and will be on the publicly available. So make sure that you're aligned with that and not sharing things that might be confidential. Second, we're under the code of conduct that we've established, and with KUDO being newly inducted, that's I hate to say that that's more, but there's a lot of rigor around that within the CNCF as well. So, and we haven't had any challenge with that. Just a reminder. So let's share the agenda just so we're all on the same page. And right now we have somewhat of a light agenda, which is great. Zane just recently added some topic to have a conversation around, and I'm not sure we actually introduced this at the community level before. So Zane, you want to take it away?
Yeah, so we didn't do on community level, so that's why I added this to the agenda. We had like more on the KUDO code level, some discussion on that, but today I wanted to like talk about that. Yeah.
Great, and I think you probably want to share your screen, so I'm going to stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No. If I can take. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, for sure. Let me share my screen. I will share the whole thing. So today we are talking about some experiments that we are doing with inside the KUDO ecosystem that we have called KUDO Shim, right? So this is coming from the idea like where we were participating in some community meetings with the datasets that are building a Cassandra operator, and that community is coming up with the idea of a same CRD design for all the operators that are like, so there will be one CRD spec to rule all the operators. And that's where, you know, like we were a bit left out of that design, not the design, but for the implementation, because KUDO has like, you know, it's their KUDO native CRD that are operator version and operator and instance. So we come up with some small experiment. So I have to repeat that this is like totally experimental, and we are still like gathering feedback on that. And from 2 hours now, like, yeah, almost from 2 hours from now, we had like a Cassandra community meeting for the operators like Kubernetes operator, and I will present the same there. So if you want to join there also, so we are in the phase of collecting feedback. So said that, like, I will go ahead. So what is this idea is about is, this is like just a plugin or like a site controller for the KUDO, where we can actually watch any kind of generic CRDs. So that would be later translated to like a KUDO operator in that sense. And the simple idea is like when we are working with this simple KUDO operator is like, we know that we have a KUDO CRDs here, and that's, you know, like a KUDO controller is watching the operator version instance, and we can define our, you know, like operators plans and the whole life cycle of the updates or upgrades based on those three CRDs. And in the KUDO Shim, what it's doing is actually, it's like keeping the whole KUDO controller, you know, like part intact. What it's just adding is like we are adding a KUDO Shim, like Shim CRD, that I will explain later what is that. And then we are, each Shim is actually, you know, like it's telling which CRD to watch, and it will bootstrap a CRD controller that is generic and installed watching this generic CRD, and translate the actions of the generic CRDs to a KUDO operator, right? So I can define my .kafka.dev CRD, and actually behind under what I'm spanning is like a KUDO Kafka operator. So this could go like on more other examples. There's like the repository is hosted in KUDO builder/shim, so you can go and check out some examples. So I will do like a one demo today. Like there are like 2 demos available in the examples, and later we can discuss about like a bit if there are some questions. But I think like a demo will explain better what is our intention here with this KUDO Shim. So this is like what we have here is a Cassandra example, right? So we want to use the DataStax CRD because still the community CRD is not like done. It's still in the design phase. So I'm just using the DataStax CRD to create a KUDO Cassandra installation. So let me just go back here. And we just have like, I just initialized KUDO. There's nothing else in this over like Kubernetes cluster, and I will just create what I'm going to create is like a KUDO shim controller that is just going to start watching only one CRD, that is the shim CRDs, right? So it's not like a generic CRD controller being started here. And yeah, it just create like, like the shim instances CRD, for it, that cluster role, and deployment where is the shim manager that is in the same namespace as the KUDO. So we have this here. Once that is done, like what we have to do is like actually go and see, like we need to create a CRD. In this case, this is the Cassandra spec, Cassandra DataStax Cassandra spec, and then we have to create a shim instance, right? So this CRD spec is basically just a simple CRD. Nobody's watching it, and it's not doing anything special. It's just installing the CRD definition into our Kubernetes cluster. The Cassandra shim is actually doing where we will telling, hey, to watch the recent created DataStax CRD and the behavior that we are expecting from to bridge or to shim towards the KUDO Cassandra installation. So let's see, like, what are the. So here, if we go to the Cassandra example, and I'm going to show the shim example. So what we are telling, like in the shim instance, we are defining like which KUDO operator it will install and the CRD spec that we're expecting to watch it, right? So this is the Cassandra DataStax, and we are also like defining the the behavior. This is not like a really complete example. The only thing to notice here, like where we want the memory to be node MIB, and this is coming from the KUDO Cassandra parameters, right? So we're telling like anything that is on here would be translated to the KUDO Cassandra parameter of node MIB, and the size, the node count will just translate to there. So let's just create the spec, and we can create the Cassandra shim. So at this point, what we should have is like a Cassandra shim controller. This is our like generic CRD controller. We have told this controller to watch the Cassandra CRDs. Anything that is being created will react to that, updates and deletions, right? So the whole life cycle would be handled by that. And now at this point, we can just actually go to the real example. That is what we are going to create is a Cassandra cluster. So this is like write the Cassandra instance, and here you can see like we are not using the KUDO parameter, but we are telling, hey, we want two node Cassandra instance, and the memory should be 512. This is coming from the DataStax specs, right? So if we want to change something like that, we would have to probably change the spec that we just created. So, and before that, no, let's create that. So after creating the Cassandra spec, what we can see, like there's a KUDO Cassandra instance being created here. We should be able to see, and we say Cassandra instance, right? So the one node is like being started there. If we get the instance.
Oh, is that Zane or is that me?
I think it's Zane.
Okay. Hey, Zane, we lost you for maybe 30 seconds or 15.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I will repeat that. So I just installed. Can you tell me where you guys lost me?
No.
By getting the instances, the last command.
Okay. So yeah, like what I just did was installing a Cassandra like instance, like using the spec from the DataStax CRD, And after like creating that spec, like there was a Cassandra CRD that instance was created, and that reflected integrated into a like instance in a Cassandra instance, right? And this obviously created like some Cassandra instance node here, and we can see that in the instance definition that the node count is 2, and like the memory is 512 that were specified in the memory in the CRD spec of the Cassandra. So basically, it's just a shim that just translated from a CRD spec that is generic. In that case, we want it to be Cassandra, but could be anything else. We can define the behavior of the CRD towards a KUDO operator, right? And I think like with that, I will leave room for questions because I don't want to like really experimental. The next steps is like just show it to some communities and get some kind of feedbacks. It might be that we want to enable some status that we will have to agree on what is the status, like we are going towards the conditions or something specific that like CRD will have to follow. We would like to have a more declarative way. So like even if somebody wants to have like cases, even the Kubernetes is not recommending, they are free to use that, right? So questions or doubts or some part that I missed?
Oh, that was great. The only thought that I wanted to add was it could feel or seem weird from a community standpoint that all of a sudden something magically shows up. And just wanted to clarify, I think you already did a good job of this, but this idea was floating around in conversations, and over an extended weekend, boom, there was like an experiment that was thrown together that was pretty compelling and interesting. So this was not to circumvent the community. In fact, that's why this example is being brought out. Is this is experimental, but the idea of bridging standardization around CRDs into the usage in a KUDO operator is the goal. And great job, Zane.
Yeah, and it's still experimental in the sense that we are looking for feedback to shape it, right? So maybe this will totally get deprecated because and the only community I know actually is like the Cassandra community that is looking forward for that. But if anybody in here in the KUDO communities see some other use cases that would be really useful and they're willing forward to come back with some feedback, that will be really helpful also.
Any thoughts around, you have this shim, but any thoughts around, is there one shim per cluster, or is it one shim per KUDO, which we don't have multiples yet, but it's been discussed. Do you have any concepts around if this were to mature, in what kind of direction it would move towards?
No, it should totally follow the KUDO ecosystem, like KUDO design. So it should be really like a plugin towards KUDO. I am not thinking about as like a generic CRD controllers that can bridge between any CRD and anything, right? So right now the concept is anything and KUDO, right? So there's only one shim controller per cluster like KUDO, but for each CRD, it is spanning a new controller. So we don't like watching all the CRD with one controller, but for Cassandra, in this case, there was like one controller watching the Cassandra CRDs. Yeah, but this is up to like, I would repeat, like it's up to discussion, and we have to see like, we have to find some usage, and if we find some advantage, some other model, yeah, that we would totally like bend towards that. Yeah.
Andreas, did you have a question or thought or comment?
No, just a thought, and I think it's really, really great. I have heard it a couple of times now in the KUDO channel that people wanted to drive KUDO with CRDs, and I think it's great because it feels more natural to operate with Kubernetes via CRDs than with an external command line tool, I guess. And it's probably also easier to integrate into CI, CD, lots of stuff where you don't want to have a custom tool installed. You just want to throw some YAML at the cluster. So it's great. I love it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it in action and integrating it with Cassandra or something.
You know, some follow on to that. One of the promises or value props of KUDO as the operator ecosystem grows, there's oftentimes no commonality across operators, which is probably what's driving the standardization that we're seeing and then addressing, right? Like that makes sense. Like that's a logical progression of thought and maturity. So with that said, we have an example of a standard for one kind of operator, right, Cassandra? My thought goes a little bit meta and further. One begins to wonder, is it possible to have a shim that would provide a common interface to other operators? So we have operator SDK type operators, KUDO operators, a variety of things, and we provide a way of kind of bridging the experience. And that might mean a tie-in with OLM. I'm not entirely sure of the full impact of my statement. I see the value in furthering this idea.
I think it's complicated because in KUDO we have like the interface to KUDO are basically our CRDs, like the instance operator version, and the interface for other operators are their CRDs. That sounds a little bit like CRD to CRD.
It's turtles all the way down, man. Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, it reminds me of XML transformation. Let's do YAML transformation.
You just gave me a heart attack. Let's never talk XML ever again. Or SOA, and those are curse words. No,
I also have to add, like what Andrea said, like it's not like that it's a really hard problem like making a generic CRD controller. Otherwise, we would see out in the wild a lot of generic CRD controller. The issue is like the KUDO standardization of like how to build an operator has helped me to build up in a weekend a CRD generic controller, because KUDO has one way to operate the operator, that is through instance, and instance is only accepting parameters. So I have not gone in deep into the implementation details, but basically what we are creating is like a flat maps from out of the JSON structure, and it's easier to map it to a map, right? But if we have a CRD to CRD, like as Andrea said, I don't know if the problem is easier anymore. Like it will be like hard, and we will leave some cases out there that won't be covered.
Yeah, I throw the idea out there without any judgment of viability, really. It may be a dumb idea. I'm really not sure. What I feel fairly strongly about is that as organizations start to mature and grow in their usage of operators, there's going to be a need, and I don't know where that need is solved, but there's going to be a need to standardization or an abstraction layer or a way of managing all of that in a way. And I make the assumption, and I don't even know if this is true, but I make the assumption that some will use OLM and operator SDK, but also maybe use KUDO or also maybe use something else. And so you have a hybrid environment that somebody's going to want to manage intelligently, maturely. So
yeah, totally makes sense. Like I'm still trying to understand like why would somebody need like a CRD, like in that sense. Like I understand it, but what I mean is like why not just go ahead and build a KUDO operator, right? So why you need like my.kafka.dev, right? So the only justification that I can find is like there's some community standard, or we can like there's a Kafka topic CRD that should create CRD. So like a whole kind of like Kubernetes client built around that, and this ecosystem, and you want to adopt to that instead of telling them, hey, you have to update a parameter, right? But if we find some use cases where like it's other than this, then yeah, I would really like to dig deeper on that and get some sort of feedback, because that totally makes sense. Like, but if somebody is just using CRD just to act that I have my own CRD, I don't find it justified, right? So like you just want CRD just because like you want to put your company in the CRD like API version, and you want to control a new like something new So
I mean,
this
Well,
could
you could see value in expanding or contracting a CRD, right? Like you could see reducing the surface area of what someone's allowed to do. So I could see reasons, and I would also a slight pushback. If you went to KUDO a year ago, there was a huge discussion around dynamic CRDs, which is really kind of dynamically creating a CRD based on a language, perhaps a CRD-like language. So I'm not in any
no,
strong position. I'm just thinking through
yeah,
thoughts.
I'm not either. I'm
And
looking is just for a feedback, right? So somebody justifies that and helps me understand like this is my use case.
One
Right?
situation might be when you are using an operator that creates another CRD that you can't control. So if something is making an Istio, whatever, because that's what it needs, or your kubeflow is making an app object, and now you want to handle that differently because the way you want to run that CRD is different or better or worse or free or more expensive than the way that gets bundled with, you can now start to control that. But you can't control what they make. That's kind of out of your hands.
Yeah, but this falls in. Sorry.
From the very basic standpoint, I mean, if we compare like KUDO parameters and a CRD is a lot more structured. I mean, it's YAML. And if we look at Kafka or Cassandra operators with like 200 parameters, it might not be the worst idea to have a little bit of structure in there and not prefix every parameter with like Cassandra, Prometheus, exporter, image, something, but I have a path something in there, which basically is YAML.
Yeah, totally. Like, but what I want to say, this fell into, from my perspective, this fell into like standardization of CRDs, right? So if there's a Istio CRD, somebody has told like, yeah, this is the CRD we all agree on, and from here, you can drive your development. The same for Kafka topic, or for let's say Cassandra backup or Cassandra restores. If community is like defining those CRDs, I'm happy with that. But other use cases like where I create my own operator and you can create with the KUDO operator, like that's the same thing, then yeah, the only justification is structure that Andreas gave, like it's better, right? So makes sense, yeah. But yeah, feel free to leave a message on the KUDO Slack channel, feedback, or like we can drive more conversation from there. Yeah.
That's really fantastic, Zane. Thanks for covering that. And this is just a really great conversation. I know we're spanning the whole gamut of like short-term versus like strategic thinking. I appreciate you entertaining all those thoughts. Okay, let's go back to the agenda then. Is there any other follow-up conversation before I jump? Hearing none. Let's see here. Do I have this? Yeah. Let's see here, Cuddle update. There's not much here except for we have some really great alignment with Red Hat's testing alignment, or I should really call it Operator SDK testing alignment with Scorecard. And Jeff's been super valuable and instrumental in pushing that forward. I think there's going to be some release of that shortly. There are two things that I would really like to advertise as things to work on within the Cuddle space, and then I think then we'll call it good. I have strong hesitation when I say that, but the first is lifecycle management, basically providing hooks in different parts of the lifecycle. And there's a KEP out there, it's worth reading, and if it goes further than that, fine, but the KEP defines essentially hooks for pre-independent test suites, as well as a whole test suite collection, and having ways of either running commands, assertions. I definitely would like to be able to define at the high level, like a collection level, a way of saying I always want to assert this to be true, so that you can just say assert this for all tests kind of thing. Maybe at the test suite level as well. Everything in this test suite, when you run a test, should assert something to be true, or maybe even the absence of true, which is roughly the same to me. So one is kind of lifecycle hooks and such. The second is probably the biggest driver with feedback. We keep running into people wanting to do an assert on an array, and currently it requires defining the entire array. When someone wants to just define an element in the array, the most common one that comes up is a collection around condition status. So if we could provide a solution around that or thoughts around that, that would be fantastic. I don't know if it means adding a language in order to support that, or whether we can come up with something that's intuitive and expressive and a little bit easier technically. But those are the big concerns around CUDL. And then I think we're in outside of documentation, I think we're in a really good place on CUDL. We're seeing a lot of adoption, a lot of usage. So I'm super excited about that. Any thoughts around CUDL at all? Oh, one more thing. To align better actually with the operator SDK, they support more platforms, including of all things S39. So we're adding those platforms, and the only reason for that is really for that alignment and to ensure that people who already expect support in that space have it. I'm questioning, it's the same thing for me as what we did for ARM. We do have an ARM release of KUDO and CUDL, but we don't really have any test environment for that. We have limited support for that. So I expect that same environment or sentiment to hold true for these new platforms. We are going to hope or expect a little bit more cooperation around the community when we have issues on those platforms. And I don't know what else to say about that. Any volunteers to be on the mainframe, or no?
No.
No. Let's see here. And then I'm super excited that people are using the mainframe still. Frankly, all our financial systems are probably still there. So I think there was topic of talking about, what was it? Jan was going to talk about, but
32, yeah, I can demo that.
Oh, great.
I mean, it's not really on the agenda here, but
yeah, it's not. Let me add this one more comment and then switch to you, and that'll probably end it. I would love to. I don't want to switch it up too often, and in fact, I've hesitated to even bring it up for probably a couple months now. But I would like to realign our calendar. If people have suggestions, maybe we just need to poll it or something. But this meeting seems to always collide with some other community meetings for which I would, among others, would probably like to be inclusive of. So the one this collides with right now is KubeBuilder, but you know, a number of us are involved either with the API machinery or with KubeBuilder or Operator SDK, and I'd love to be able to still be involved in those and also attend this. So, and maybe we need to also think about being more EU friendly for at least one of these meetings a month as well. So if there's thoughts on that, I would love to talk about it. No, I see heads shaking. Okay, so I get a sense that there is an agreement or at least an okayness with some change there. Maybe we need to just have a discussion on Slack or send out a poll.
yeah, it's fine for me. I mean, this time is already kind of too late for me.
Okay.
There's probably others in Europe where it's too late. But I mean, still fine for me. I think the others work a bit later. But
Yeah.
if we can find something.
I think it's going to be hard to get West Coast and Europe and not collide with the community, because there's a ton of community meetings and there's only like 3 hours during the day that is comfortable enough to ask the West Coast to wake up or ask the East Coast to stay up. Like, you're just gonna have to pick your least favorite meeting that you want to collide with.
Perfect.
And you can't do it on Mondays and you can't do it on Fridays because that's not fair either. So you've got 3 days, 9 hours to choose from. So it's got to be your top 10 meetings to be able to attend.
So this is how it feels, right? I agree with all
that's
those
how
things.
It is. Like,
I will say that I really like the idea that if we continue 2 meetings a month, which is what we currently have, or maybe it's every other week, I'm not sure, but it's roughly that cadence. I would love for every other meeting to be more EU friendly and every other meeting to be more, let's call it Pacific Coast US friendly. So, and the East and Central of the US, for the most part, can work with either one of those or both. So it seems. We'll see where we land on that.
Yeah, but I mean, if I don't think that's too much of a problem right now. With EU friendly versus US friendly, I think these hours are fine. And once the community grows and we see that there's a lot of people not joining because the times are unfriendly for them, we should think about that again.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that right now, but well, I'm not sure. Maybe there isn't a lot of community joining because they're all in, say, Australia or some time zone. That's not suitable here.
Yeah.
Or they're in the Kuba builder, or
that, yeah.
machinery.
Yeah. Oftentimes we don't have a full attendance from the EU, and I don't know if people are just looking to watch the recording or if it's pretty late. It could be around dinner time or later. I'm not entirely sure, but I would love to support that a little bit better. So anyway, Jan, do you want to take us through the CAP and show a demo?
Yeah, sure. Let's share my screen here. So this is you guys. Oh no, it's automatically switching the screen. Awesome. So yeah, it's not merged yet. So that's why I didn't, wanted to demo it next community meeting once it's merged. But we can do it anyways here because the implementation is almost done. This is CAP 32 about providing a new workflow for the community repository. Yeah, not merged yet, but I already started on the implementation because a lot of that stuff is doable, or a lot of stuff has already been agreed on, and the devil is in the detail, of course, but that's some things that can be changed on the go once these things are agreed upon. So I wrote a small tool. It's an index transfer tool which manages an index and creates a repository, creates a KUDO repository from that. I won't go into the details here because it's implementation detail for this new project here, which is called Operators Index, still alpha, and it's not writing to the community repo yet because it's still being tested. But yeah, this is just some CI/CD workflows plus this folder called Operators. And in this folder, you can then define references to existing operator packages in Git repositories or tarballs somewhere on the web. And once you add that here, this will get added to the community repository once it's merged to the main branch here. Let's take a look at something here, how that would look like. And this is not the final API, this will be changed. There's some discussion around versions here, but this is also like mirrored in the CAP, how that would look like. So yeah, you say here's an operator. It's in this Git repository. So this is the day 2 operator for KUDO Cassandra. And here are the versions we have. And with that, you can have a one-to-one mapping of things provided in this index to what is then written into the community repository once this has been merged to master. And let's take a look. Are there already questions? Am I too fast? I hope not. Let's take a look at how that CI/CD workflow would look like. I mean, I already explained that once something lands on main, it will get added to the community repo, but first users are expected to create a pull request. This would look like this. Yeah, no, okay, I'm just adding this file here with these 2 versions. And there is some checks running that are here. So this is running continuous integration that does some stuff, but mostly just checks, hey, are these operator packages available? I mean, these are referencing Git repositories. Can I check out this Git repository? is the tech version providing an operator package. Is this operator package valid? If it is, then this CI job is done. And once this gets merged to main, a new check runs, which does a bit more. I mean, it does the same, but also pushes working on the temporary repository, and it pushes that to the community repository, so that all the changes, I mean, it pushes maybe wrong, it syncs that, so everything new gets added there, and things that didn't change, we don't rewrite the community repo all the time. Yeah, I should change the name here. And yeah, that's basically it. There's some stuff missing. We cannot remove stuff yet. I have to think about that. But all in all, this is working pretty fine. Of course, not using the community repo yet, but once we decided, once we're fine with cap32 and it's merged, we could switch this to the community repository. And then, yeah, you just create PRs against this index, or maybe we rename that, but I like the name. And yeah, we have something here. Probably need some more documentation, but yeah.
This is really great. That's fantastic. I hate to catch you off guard because I just thought of this, and I don't know if we have the right, if we're prepared for it. Perhaps it's another limitation, but occasionally we've had breaking changes that have resulted in, like, if you look at our community repo right now, there is the root to the repo, and then there's like the 0.10.0, which is essentially a rebuild. And what I'm specifically referring to is backward compatibility support. At some point, we're going to have to be able to support different operators of different metadata, potentially, essentially a breaking change. So has there been any thought or questions? Like this pipeline currently seems aligned with one model, and probably works great with that one model, but any thoughts or ideas around how we would manage supporting either multiple repos or mixed repos with mixed APIs?
Yeah,
API I'm using loosely there, but
repos, I mean, if there would be a backwards compatible change, then I think the main question is how we handle that in KUDO. Will we still want to support adding changes to the old repository or not? We probably want to in some certain.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I think it's probably a KUDO question. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, if we don't want to do that, it's easy to just rebuild the index here with a new API version, because I mean, here's nothing in there. Well.
Will we have instructions or details for someone to create their own like their version of the community repo? Like, will they just be able to, like, disaster recovery style create an instance?
Not yet. I mean, this could be this the tool I showed. I can do that. I mean, or just in KUDO itself with a repo index tool.
Sure.
Depends on what users want to do, really. But yeah, this having multiple compatible versions in there, I'm not sure yet how we best support that. I mean, because we are not really sure yet in how to best support that in KUDO as well. Because when we had backwards compatible changes, we created a new repo. And yeah.
It's probably time to deprecate that 0.10.0 or whatever was in the root. But anyway,
yeah,
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, but if we have something, I mean, I would say this is a different discussion and a different cap, but this needs to be aligned with that, definitely, because totally I agree. Definitely see the value added in supporting different versions in one single repo. But then I think there also needs to be a mechanism inside of KUDO to say, hey, I'm KUDO version this and that, and I'm compatible with this and that operator packages, and selecting the ones. But yeah, this is not solving this problem yet.
Yeah, great. Yep, makes sense. Any other, anything else to present or any questions regarding operator index? Community release? I don't know if it was summarized this way, but the whole point and goal of this is to be able to provide a way for third parties to be able to inject their operators without requiring them to fit into our current KUDO operators GitHub repository. So, along with maturing our own process.
Yeah.
Very good. I had a thought, but I lost it. Any other, we're out of the agenda. We're into kind of open discussion. So, any other topics to surface? Anything, Tom or Shane, you want to?
Are the release notes automatically generated?
So today, what we have, I guess it depends on what you mean. Operator release, probably not. KUDO and Cuddle, we do have release notes that basically are placed on GitHub as part of the release. We do have,
Right.
We did have at one point it was experimental. It's there now. It has been for the last 2 or 3 releases. A GitHub workflow, which is a draft releaser, a release drafter, something. And if you tag a commit before it merges appropriately, it can be highlighted as a breaking change and highlighted as a highlight on the release notes. If you're looking for finer grain, we don't have automation around that in general. It's when we have highlighted things, we commonly will release it with some details, either through a blog or part of the email. That's our current process today.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I see the breaking changes, so that's automated.
It is. Well, automated as long as the human does the right thing, right?
Right. It's partially automated. So yeah, I just mentioned that because I was curious because I've run into a couple of things, one recently where public symbols have changed between miners, and I had to ask for help and figure it out, but breaking changes that I didn't see in the release notes.
Yeah, I think you surfaced some of that conversation with me. We should probably backtrack and add that to the breaking changes. It's a breaking change at a different level. I don't know if we're always mindful when we're breaking kind of language level APIs versus
Probably not.
CLI. What's that?
Well, if it's not clear to everybody, just a heads up. At least with us, we're using package CMD public symbols, like as a library. So
Yeah, I mean we don't really have a separation between internal and public symbols in KUDO, which is a little bit unlucky. But yeah.
How would you suggest us maturing that? Anyone?
Me? I think it'd be really nice if there was just a part of the release process that went and checked the previous version and the new version and see if any public symbols changed, like any of them moved or were removed or the signatures changed for them.
Well, I mean, the problem with that is that all symbols are public at the moment.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
again, this isn't a huge deal or anything. I was just wondering, like, if there was a way. So, like,
and I created a ticket at some point where I wanted to kind of stabilize kind of a public API. Didn't do that yet because it's also kind of a big thing, a lot of refactoring to do, but also like clearly define what's internal to KUDO and what could be externally used. Because I mean, at day 2 we are doing that, and in a project that for itself wants to have stable APIs, and we can't really provide them. So it would be fine, great to get there at some point. But yeah, I couldn't find the time yet to actually grasp the whole refactoring that would be needed for that.
At this point, I noted the notes that this conversation I've noted in our agenda notes, and I will take the action item of creating an issue so at least we have it captured, and then we'll figure out how we want to prioritize and align on that.
Yeah, and
to put a finer point on it, the reason why I brought it up wasn't that it was a huge deal. It was not a huge ordeal. It was more like if it was something that I could contribute some help for, like update the release process or something like that so that it could catch these things. But if everything's public, and I guess that makes sense in retrospect, I didn't think about that. If everything's public, but actually, I don't know if that'd be bad still to just have a section in the release notes that said this package lost this symbol or this symbol changed, even if it's everything, just because
Yeah,
like we're
that's
using
great.
it.
If there's an easy way to generate that, sure, that would be nice.
No, but I guess like we should just find a way to mark what is our public facing API methods, right? So in the end,
That'd
it's
be
just like
ideal.
four or five methods in the CMD package, and nobody should we should not be worrying about like we are changing the instance client, right? So we are adding something in the instance client and it should be changed because I don't know if like others are doing that when they're changing their internal objects. So I think here what Shane, you can correct me, what you mean is like it's kind of the all Go packages that are simulating the kubectl KUDO behavior, right? So these are like,
I would say it's even a bit
Yeah,
of a
that's correct.
bigger topic here, because I mean, for Go, everything is public except it's in an internal package that by default isn't publicly available. But we never, I mean, in the beginning, we never intended, I guess we never intended KUDO to be used as a library. So there was.
so that's why I mean, like we should not go for all the public methods, but try to find a way where we can identify.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
I mean, this
and,
Well,
the refactoring, where we could think about, hey, what do we want to be publicly available and consumable? And I mean, we already have some stakeholder here and some day two products that use that in a certain way. There are now with a project I showed for the operators index, this is also using some things there. And then kind of define a stable API or like try to follow the Go language API guidelines here for public libraries as much as possible.
I think most ideally would be just to take anything that's a public like function or symbol right now and put it in the public, like make it part of the package, make it part of the actual client, and have the client be separate from the command line. Right now, a lot of that's like in the CMD directly, and then make anything in the CMD private, lowercase. That would be super ideal. Next ideal thing would just be defining that so that you're not removing stuff people are using that you say you're gonna support. And then the other thing would be like a quick fix for now that would be like, hey, just so you know, when this release came out, you're gonna have to change this if you use this.
This is really great feedback. As pointed out, we were unaware people would use it this way, and it's clearly something that's valuable. So,
if you make it public, it will be used.
Amen. That's a great point, and it will remain. It will be constrained forever.
Yeah, I just found the ticket I created. It's more. I mean, it's not really about public, private, and stable APIs or something. It's a bit more general about, hey, refactor this package, this util package into a separate one. And I kind of never spoken out idea behind that was to also make it a bit more Go API like. But yeah, never worked on that.
Well, very good. I think that in all likelihood, we're running towards the end of the meeting time. I think we've probably ready to close. Is there any last comments? Anyone want the last word? No, okay. Well, my friends in Europe, have a great evening. Everybody else get back to work. Have a great day. We should look forward in 2 weeks for the next one, and just expect that until we make any kind of announcement or change. I'm sure there'll be some polling going on if we make any changes. So right now we'll stick with what we have. And thanks. Have a great one.
Good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tschüss.